Hi, it's Keith from the Evangelical Free Church, Stony Stratford. I thought as we have got to the end of the old year, it would be good to have something to think about for the new year. So this week's message comes from Hebrews chapter 1, verses 1 and the first part of verse 2. In the past, God spoke to our forefathers through the prophets at many times and in various ways. But in these last days, he has spoken to us by his Son. Have you ever sort of wondered about how life is divided up? I was thinking about it the other day and I thought, well, it's quite easy. I could think of two ways my life's been divided. And one is when I got married. Obviously, being single was radically different to being married. I've now been married for over half my life. So obviously, I can look back and see a major change in my life. The other one, of course, was when I went from being a builder and decorator to becoming a pastor. It was a radical change in what I was doing, in my vocation. And this letter, which was to Hebrew Christians, starts with a major revelation. And it starts with a before and after. And the before and after is before Christ came and everything since. It's really saying that history is in two parts. Basically, it outlines how God spoke to his people in the past. It says here, he spoke to our forefathers through the prophets. That is how God used to speak to them. And it adds, doesn't it, at many times in various ways. Rather interestingly, I don't know what your idea of the Bible's like. Maybe you think God was speaking to people with a booming voice, a bit like a sort of fairy tale, nearly all the time. But that wasn't the case. He often spoke through people he'd appointed. And he did that many times. But it was over hundreds of years. It wasn't an everyday occurrence. That was the difference. Because when Christ came, that all changed. Verse 2, but in these last days, he has spoken to us by his Son. We note there's the before and there's the after, and there's been a big change. God has revealed himself. Rather interestingly, the Greek is very hard to translate. Tenses and stuff are always different in Greek to English. And so you have a problem here. But basically, however you translate it, it works out pretty much the same. As we see in the version I'm using, it says, in the past, and then it says, in these last days. It can be translated at the end of these days. So either way, it divides the time of the prophets from the time of Christ. The point it's making is everything has changed with Christ coming. Whereas God spoke to certain people at certain times, now, because we have the Bible and we have the gospel where we see the works of Jesus Christ and we see his actions and we see his mission, now we have God's word revealed to us and it's available to all of us. Basically, it's saying a new age has come where God has revealed himself. And the point is this: we actually can see what God is like through his word, the Bible. Do you know Christianity is radically different from other religions? The basis of most religions, if not all, is about finding yourself or finding God. What have we just read here? It says God reveals himself to us. But it also says that God reveals himself to us if we look in the right place, if we look to Jesus Christ. This letter that was written to Christians years ago is all about Christ's supremacy. And that's what Christ's message is about. It's about a supreme God, but a God who came to show us what God's like, to show us his love in repairing the damage that our rebellion, our living our own way, our ignoring God's rules had caused between us and God. Well, you might be thinking, even still, so what? I can handle God on my own terms. I'd like to challenge you on that. The point is, if you look at the moral law, the Ten Commandments as it were, and what Jesus says about them, and about fair treatment of people, and giving God his rightful place, we very quickly realise we struggle with them, and we certainly struggle with the way Jesus teaches them. Jesus said it wasn't enough not to murder. I think we could all pat ourselves on the back for that. But the issue, he said this: if you're seriously angry with your brother or neighbour or whatever, you've broken God's law. The other one, which really hits home, do not commit adultery. Well, perhaps we could say we've done all right in that place, but he says, well, to look lustfully at one person of the opposite sex. Well, you've broken God's law. You failed. Now, I'm going to let you in on a secret. Pastors fail just as much as everyone else. And I fail in those areas as well. So I can't stand before God and say, well, I've kept all your commandments, because he'll say, well, have you kept them the way my son taught them, Jesus? Have you kept them in your heart? Have you kept your thoughts pure? And I'd have to say no. I failed miserably there. The point we've got here is that God has revealed himself. He's revealed himself through Jesus Christ. He's revealed himself in his word. So why not, in the new year, pick up a Bible? Have you ever read it? Have you just dismissed it? Well, how can you dismiss something without reading it? Please feel free to come past the church. There's New Testament's versions of Mark out the front there. We'd be very happy for you to take one. They're completely free. Read it and experience what Jesus has said to us and shown us about God. Thank you so much for listening.